And we're actually sitting about 1.5 miles from the SS Richard Montgomery. The Richard Montgomery was built by the St. John's River Shipbuilding Company in Florida in the summer of 1943. She was a Liberty ship, and she was 7 of 82 built by the St. John's Company. The problem with the Liberty ships, which that is a model of the Montgomery, is that they have welded hulls, not riveted hulls. So it makes them a little weak. And the Montgomery in the August of 1943 was loaded with 6,127,000 tonnes of phosphor bombs. She was due to join a convoy and made a safe crossing of the Atlantic, ended up at Liverpool and was directed round the north of Scotland down the coast, ended up at Southend. This is August 1944, where there was a storm forecast and a possible air raid. And the Admiral of the Blue, who is the guy in charge of all South East England's waters, said, "Move that munition ship away from my oil terminal. Do it now. I don't care where you put it, but move it."
Now, the government's current position is that it's best not to touch it because it would be more risky to actually try and remove the munitions than leave them where they are. And that's perfectly true. As it is at the moment, that is perfectly safe. There's no hint of a problem. But of course, if an aircraft was to drop out of the sky, God forbid, and was to hit that, you'd probably wipe out the whole of Sheppey and probably half of the Medway towns at the same time. There are 2 plans that have been put forward for a Thames Estuary airport. One is was mooted by the London Mayor as being a purpose-built island a mile off the north coast of Sheppey. The other plan is to have an airport on the Isle of Grain, which, whilst is equally as problematic, is more likely to be realistic than any purpose-built island in the Thames Estuary.
It's 37 years, all but 1 week, since the Richard Montgomery went down here 3 miles off the coast. When she sank in 1944, she was carrying 7,000 tonnes of explosives. Half of that has since been salvaged, but there are still 3,500 tonnes of unexploded bombs and ammunition just a few feet below us. For years there have been fears that perhaps a collision with another vessel or the breaking up of the sunken American Liberty ship by the tide would cause the cargo to explode, devastating Sheerness and causing severe damage to the BP oil refinery on the Isle of Grain.
She ended up then across the estuary, about 1.5 miles north of here, moored just outside Sheerness. 20th of August, the storm arrived, and she only had 3 foot under her keel as draft space. Storm blew her onto a sandbank where she got stuck. They hoped they could refloat her next high tide, but the storm returned. She went further onto the sandbank and broke her back. So she's now in 2 halves.
The Liberty ships were sent over from America to Britain to provide us with assistance and munitions to fight Hitler. And so we should never be ungrateful about what they tried to do to help us. This ship actually sunk, and the Americans cleared as much of the munitions off there as they could at the time, but for all sorts of reasons it wasn't completed.
The official version goes that it was too dangerous to unload holds 3 and 4 in the aft section. The unofficial version goes that the stevedores from Rochester, Chatham and Sheerness said, "She's our wreck, we will unload her." because there's value in salvage, whatever that may be. And the Medway Ports Authority said, no, no, she's our wreck, we will unload her. And between them, it never got done. So there she sits, a mile and a half away, with about 3,000 tonnes of phosphor bombs on board. One of the interesting things about the Richard Montgomery is that she's not there at all, according to the American Navy. There is a letter here signed by one Lieutenant Assistant Public Information Officer L.S. Colquhoun that says, since only her superstructure remained visible, she was declared a marine wreck. She was raised and scrapped in April 1948 and sold to Phillips, Clark and Fisher Company on the 28th of April 1948. It's not true. She's still there and you can see her. If she did go up and all the munitions went up at the same time, it varies between being a small atomic explosion and a grand firework display. The main danger is probably the tidal wave that would be created, because that would go across to Essex, back onto the island, up the Medway and up the Thames.
I'm in the mood for love, and simply because you're near me.
When we have people in the centre here, I often get asked about the Montgomery. Most people who ask are not aware that she was a munitions ship, a Liberty ship, so they're not aware of the danger. General thought is that she's benign, that, as I've said before, if she was going to go, she'd have blown up by now. She's dived on every 2 years. So she's inspected, sure that the planners of Boris Island are aware of her, and if she stops an airport being built on top of us, then she'll have done good service.